Welcome back to the Cantha playthrough. We're having a look at this region of the world in anticipation of the Guild Wars 2 expansion sequel. Almost halfway through the game now as we leave the city. So you will notice that there are several missions and significant locations in the city that we have yet to do, like the Sunjiang district here and so on. But the story is actually taking us away now. You'll notice I'm at this location called the Martu Keep, and just beyond here is lovely lush green hills. The Martu Keep is not actually the original proper exit to the city. The game takes you through this area, the Sunjiang district, which I wouldn't be surprised if any of these little areas become map names in Guild Wars 2, by the way, and actually makes you wade through sewage in a really, really nasty place before you finally get out. Martu Keep is kind of an optional thing off on the side right now. I've always enjoyed the Martu Keep, though, and I thought it'd be a good place to start this video. We are going to be skipping right on into the Echo Valley Forest in just a second, but that actually takes us over a lot of story that happens in primary quests, so I'll give you guys a brief retelling of them now. Essentially, after we save Vizu, we get the attention of the Emperor. The Emperor himself visits the temple, as was suggested in yesterday's episode, and from the temple we kind of get to speak to him. He actually acknowledges us. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise, hopefully, considering by the end it will be revealed that Togo is actually the Emperor's half-brother. But so we speak with him and he says, look, this plague is very, very, very big problem. We have to deal with it. And I think we should get the Luxons and the Kurziks to help out. And we have good reason to do so because we've just heard about the Spear of St. Victor and the Spear of Archimedes and the Urn of St. Victor. So we want to get them into the fold somehow. How do we do that? Well, we're introduced to a character called Danica. She's a woman, like a noble, from the Echo Valley Forest, that when we first find her, she's in the city, she's helping like a crying boy, and she kind of says, look, I will help you, I will give you an inn with my people, let's go to the Echo Valley Forest and see what we've got. And so we travel. I'll give you guys a little impression of what it looks like to board on the city here behind us. And I always like this view of the edge of the city. You spent so long in that sprawling mass of just nonsense and shantytown nastiness. It's interesting to see it from the outside in. And then kind of opposite it, you can see the hints at a petrified forest over there. So this map's a really interesting map. This is actually one of my favorite maps in all of Guild Wars 1, the Pongmei Valley, just because it's got so many crazy different things to experience. Sections of the city, sections of these nice green areas, sections of the forest over here, and you even sort of get some glimpses kind of over towards the Jade Sea. And the number of different creatures you can find and fight here are wild. The Island Guardian itself, as you can see, is right here. This is one of the builds that we open this series on. And you can see he's using the very abilities that we, I genuinely think, got a lot of good use out of. There's also Rottwallows here. These are interesting little creatures in the forest that some of the characters actually use as pets, and we get to use as henchmen. I think there'd be interesting mounts in Guild Wars 2, to be honest. We've also got the Wardens here. So the Wardens are people, caretakers of the forest that saw the damage that humans did here and are mad at us and now fight us over it. We'll learn more about the Wardens as we go on. But the strategy guide that I've been reading you guys from, the devs in that actually referred to the Wardens as Dryads. See, the strategy guide is from very early factions where a lot of stuff wasn't set in stone, and you can see the screenshots of the game in the guide. Show things and, you know, work in progress UI that never actually existed. Well, they call the Wardens Dryads. Really interesting. Dryads as a concept didn't really make it as Wardens in the end, and nowadays we think of like a Sylvari connection between the two, if anything else. Here we get some creatures. You see these are called dragon mosses. Though they have the word dragon in them, they're not necessarily have anything to do with Guild Wars 2 Elder Dragons. It's just what they're called by the Canthans here, and there's a few creatures like that. Some of them are genuinely draconic looking, and we'll find later. A bit like Tamu, we already saw the Celestial, but in other occasions, they're just kind of random creatures around. I do love all the various creatures that they implemented in Guild Wars 1, but usually you play so zoomed out and with so many players and so many skill effects, you just don't get to appreciate them, because they're always hostile. Unless you use a tonic or something, but that's hardly good enough. So, yes, this is what it's like to enter the forest. It's not a super grand moment of transition, and if the game was a bit bigger scope, maybe the Pongmei Valley would be bigger. You wouldn't be able to stand and blatantly see the two right next to one another. I like the sense that what we experience in game is actually just as much smaller scale version of the real story they're attempting to tell. But hey, and so we hit the Tangled Copse, which is kind of an entry outpost. And from the Tangled Copse, we take an elevator, a lift, into this place, the Arborstone, which is a great cathedral, and we can now figure out why we are here and what the mission will be. The introductory cinematic will actually show us going along the lift as well, which I quite like. Guild Wars 2 is actually capable of doing all sorts of interesting things, elevators and rafts and boats and stuff that move now. It's amazing what the devs can do. In Guild Wars 1, they kind of had to fake all that stuff. Any moment of a vehicle or an interior was just faked in like a cutscene and wasn't very interesting. And this is one of the main places I always think of when the devs had to fake it. Like, you can see as a part of the environment the lift somewhere, but you don't actually get to ride it. It's just like a cutscene mechanism. That's it. What I will say though is, get a load of the sights. What an awesome place. The forest, well, my favorite always goes back and forth when it comes to Guild Wars 1, what my true favorite region is, but I think they did the Echo Vale Forest really, really well. The music here, Guild Wars 2 for players, will actually be somewhat familiar with. The devs reused it a lot, and they reused it a lot in Eye of the North as well. It was just that good, but now it's kind of diluted. But this kind of echoey, ambient, haunting sounds that you listen to, this is really the Echo Vale Forest. And the idea of the canopy all the way up there that you can never get to, but in Guild Wars 2 we might be able to climb these trees, is very exciting to me. The idea that most of these trees have got houses carved into them, into the stone, and little windows, you know, filled with warm lights peeking out. The idea that in Guild Wars 2 we can actually visit inside them is also extremely exciting to me. But do remember that this might not be looking stony anymore. I'll note that, you know, there's some green breaking up, even in Guild Wars 1. I'm sure that the environment artists and the people creating the assets went crazy when they heard they had to make a whole forest of just stone, because, I mean, you do need some different colors to shake things up and, you know, make the screen pop. So they did actually do a little bit of green, a little bit of shrubbery, a little bit of moss and whatnot. But in general, most of the stuff is just solid rock. It's really cool. And this is the rope with the elevator that I was talking about. So let's speak to Gatekeeper Becca. We have business outside of camp. That Arborstone explorable, that just allows us to go into Arborstone without actually playing the mission. That is not the recap that I'm looking for. We need to find the recap NPC. Probably this person here. Here we go. Acolyte Flans. This is a wonderful sight. Seeing you here with such exuberance, such spirit will be necessary, since the task ahead will not be easy. Acquiring the sacred urn of St. Victor is your goal, no matter the cost. Go forth and may Dwayna watch over you. How can I help you? Sorry, what can I help you with? So, remind me of the current situation. Saving Vizu and releasing the other spirits was an enormous boost to your cause. The Emperor is meeting with the Kurziks regarding their present war with the Lugsons, but he suggested you find Danica so that she might help you obtain the urn. And Danica's taken us here, basically. What's happening at House Zuheltzer? So, House Zuheltzer is that there are lots of great houses within the forest, and the Kurziks who live here. By the way, get a load of his visual design. And the Zuheltzers are kind of like the big daddies, the main guys. The capital town outpost, kind of the equivalent of Kaining Center, was House Zuheltzer. And it's actually funny, to this day in Guild Wars 2, very rarely I will find players who have named their character, you know, like Brian Zuheltzer or something like that. They always put Zuheltzer on the end, and I always smile at that and think, yeah, that's a Guild Wars 1 nerd, because he was clearly very into the Echo Vale Forest. So anyway, and we apparently know about them now. Menlo brought you here to obtain the urn, but it is held in the Cathedral Zuheltzer, which was overrun by wardens when the magical protections failed. Danica offers her services to assist you in obtaining the urn that you might use it to defeat Shiro. Do you have any advice? And well, here's the cinematic where we learn about the cathedral having fallen. Oh yeah, there's a rot wallow in it. I mean, how cool is that? That is so awesome. The devs have got to do something like that in the sequel. I forgot that they had a rot wallow in it, like a giant hamster wheel. That's fantastic. It's very bizarre as well, because I bet that took a lot of time and energy to create that. But all it's ever used for is that one shot in that cutscene. It's not like in the Grove in Guild Wars 2 where there's seed pods moving up and down all the time. That is it. You don't see it anywhere else. So anyway, we're with Menlo. Menlo will mostly come with us in these areas, while Togo will go to the Jade Sea.
I'll do the talking here.
They actually had a bit of a mystery about Menlo's disappearance from the forest or something. I'm not sure was ever answered. Don't remember the details of it too much now.
You may rise.
It has been a long time since we last met, Brother Menlo.
Indeed, Count Zuhelzer. I'm glad to find you in good health.
I am similarly pleased. But enough with the pleasantries. You have come here with a purpose, have you not?
As always, Count, you are well informed and to the point. We have come for the urn of Saint Victor.
This is not a small thing that you ask, Brother Menlo. The final resting place of our greatest hero. The man who single-handedly slew Shiro, the betrayer. Why do you ask this of us?
Because, Count, Shiro Takachi has returned.
Dun dun dun. The music was so sweet there.
If what you say is true, then it was indeed very wise for you to come to us.
Then you will give us what we seek?
We wish to help you, but I'm afraid it's not as easy as just handing over the urn.
What is it you require of us?
We require nothing, but Saint Victor's remains are ensconced inside Cathedral Zuhelzer.
All right, then. We shall go to Cathedral Zuhelzer.
Brother Menlo, many things have changed since you were last here. The cathedral's magical protections have failed. It's been overrun by all manner of terrible beasts. To go there will mean great peril.
I see.
If you still wish to pursue the urn, speak with my daughter, Countess Danica. She can open the doors within the cathedral and help you recover what you seek.
Thank you, Count.
Thank you, Count.
Godspeed to you.
Oh, so Danica didn't speak in that cutscene. Danica has one of the voices that has always been or used to be. I mean, Guild Wars 1 is so little talked about these days. But Danica was like one of the terrible, terrible voices. A very, very grating voice, very funny voice that became like a massive joke, really, to the community. You'll get a lot of that in a moment. Nonetheless, I always thought her character design was quite good. I'm surprised you don't see more people cosplaying her. Like with the lipstick, with the one red lip underneath and the one black lip above. You know, it seems like the kind of thing you'd expect people to do. But so we're going to move in now, and we're going to assault the ruins of the cathedral. As far as builds are going, I've changed mine up a little bit, added a res of my own. I've got rid of Blood is Power and gone back to using Icy Veins. I really like Icy Veins. And also, actually, instead of running Energy Surge Mesmer here, I've gone with Psychic Instability. Now, there was an update to I forgot about the update to this skill. I was browsing through between the two episodes. What this does is if I score an interrupt with it, i.e. the hero scores an interrupt with it, it knocks the target down for 4 seconds. That's a long knockdown, first of all. But here's what's crazy about it. It's AoE. It's an AoE knockdown for 4 seconds, and they can do it every 12. I'm telling you, this is nuts. And on a hero, heroes are especially good at interrupts. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing just how much shutdown that is. It's going to be nuts. Oh, I put Flesh of My Flesh on him as well instead of some Paragon stuff. So yeah, some slight tweaks. I'll probably be a little bit more creative as we go forward. I love Guild Wars 1 build craft. Can you tell? And since we're not drafting anymore, I'm looking for outlets elsewhere. But that should be fun. And yeah, let's run on through and see how the mission goes. This mission is kind of the Indiana Jones, tomb robbing, Dermond Priory Guild Wars 2 experience that I actually quite enjoy, to be honest. We're going to raid this great ancient cathedral that's fallen into ruin. The opening stages, we fight some wardens on the outside. And we're actually going to find in this mission a lot of creatures that I can talk and give you guys interesting stories about. Particularly some of them we should have met a long time ago, but I guess it's only now in the main story that we're finally going to get to grips with them. Here's what the devs say. The heroes must recover the earthly remains of the Kurzik champion Saint Victor. The champion's body, turned to jade by Shiro's death wail, were ground into dust and placed within an urn hidden within Cathedral Zuhelzer, a place of worship built like a fortress which protects the living of House Zuhelzer and serves as a tomb for their dead. So they're like living among their dead. And listen to that as well. I hadn't really thought of that. But yeah, they killed Shiro, but it's at the epicenter of the death whale that petrifies everything. So he got petrified. So his ashes, it's like jade ashes. It's like petrified ashes. It's just ground up. I had never thought about that until the strategy guide dev comment made me think it. Or told me it. You will accompany Countess Danica Zuheltzer, daughter of House Zuheltzer leader Count Petrov, as she guides your team into the bowels of the cathedral to recover St. Victor's remains. She'll lead the party down a convoluted path into the nave of the cathedral where the urn holding his ashes rests. You got to defeat the nave boss to lower the magical barrier protecting the urn, but as often happens in these cases, retrieving the sacred artifact triggers a cave-in, separating us from Menlo, who urges us to continue to the surface with Countess Danica's help. So yeah, that's the setup of the mission, which you'll see in a second. I'm still currently just fighting my way into what they're calling the nave. But get this, here's the Dryad comment. First of all, they give a bit of extra background on Danica. Danica Zuheltzer believes it's time for her people, the Kurziks, to leave their isolation in the petrified Echovald forest and rejoin the greater realm. She will aid the heroes of their quest for St. Victor's ashes. And then they say this, Dryads. These creatures use the spirit-based skills of ritualists and rangers to defend what they have come to think of as their domain, no matter which house's name is on the cathedral. These Echovald forest wood spirits will not part with the urn of their saint without a fight. So that's the strategy guide's description of these creatures that ultimately became known actually as Wardens. I don't expect Guild Wars 2 will look to that stuff too much, but being able to return here would be pretty cool. I think it's an interesting idea to note now, what exactly might come in the expansion versus what might come after the expansion. So let's look at Path of Fire. Path of Fire added a ton of prophecies regions in the Crystal Desert and so on, and then it added some Ilonan regions, but it wasn't until Living World Season 4 that they actually expanded into giving us Corner and Istan. We didn't get all the territory at once, and even to this day, we don't have all the territory. There are some particularly really beautiful and cool areas of the Istani Isles that we don't have. So when it comes to a Guild Wars 2 expansion, we probably do need to think, will the devs give us it all straight away? Well, maybe not. Maybe we get an expansion, but it's just Kaineng, or it's just Xingji, and then it's the later Living World that continues to build from that. I'm not sure what to expect, really, because while I do think that Living World, or if they're calling it Sagas now, can deliver really high-quality stuff with lots of unique assets and decent work, I think blow for blow, a lot of the post-Path of Fire content is just as good as Path of Fire itself. Though that's true, there are a lot of unique assets and things needed to make this place feel like this place and the Jade Sea feel like the Jade Sea. And I wonder whether the devs will be up to implementing all of that post-release, or they'll try to do it in the expansion itself. But so, I wonder, you know, maybe we'll actually have to wait for after the release to get to some of these more southern areas and unique locations. Hopefully not. And who knows even what these places will be like once all of the stone that they're built out of, or a lot of this stuff is built out of, is depetrified. So right now, I don't really have too many struggles taking out these Wardens. I do love their skills for what it's worth. One of the iconic and interesting things about this forest is the way that the devs implemented the skills of the creatures here. These Wardens lay traps, which cause a lot of cripple and a lot of bleeding. And they use nature rituals like lacerate and brambles. So the idea is you're wading through tangled thickets of mess, and that's actually being reflected in the in-game combat. It's slow and you're getting deteriorated and drained down as you travel through. And I kind of like the idea of drafting some of these and playing with them. But builds like this don't really work on us as heroes as well, I don't think, because, you know, any kind of trap-heavy build for PvE is very stop-start, 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 and would probably be a bit of a pain to deal with. But it was always a pleasure going through the Echovald Forest, and when I think about the Warden skill bars, I always think they were well done. You know, the drafting game that I was doing, it might be more interesting to do a variant of that challenge where it's like you pick a tribe and you see whether that tribe can beat the game. So what do I mean by that? Maybe you don't draft, but maybe you say, okay, I'm going to get all the Warden cards, all the Warden builds, and I'm going to see if using those builds I can beat the game. How far can Team Warden get, right? Can you beat it? Cool, you can. So now let's try Team Oni, or Team Dredge, or Team Amphar, or Team Jade Brotherhood, or Team Sensali, because there are plenty of builds, and often they actually synergize with one another as well. Can a team of Afflicted beat the factions campaign? You know, a lot of the time fighting other Afflicted. Can a team of Shirokan actually do it? Because a lot of the time the devs, when the devs are constructing PvE challenges, it's not just about the builds, but it's, you know, the level of the creatures you're fighting. Anyway, so killing the first Wardens triggers this nice little cutscene here where we claim the urn. And it should be as simple as this, really, but as the strategy guide says, it never is. And the mission's going to do an interesting thing. I do like the shots they go with in this. Like, look at that zoom in on that statue. Little details in the environment you wouldn't usually enjoy. There you get the destruction of a wall. That's kind of reused in one of the competitive missions they called Fort Aspenwood, but we get a bit of here in this cutscene. So we resolve to escape, charging away.
Look out!
And Danica gets knocked right back.
Countess, are you all right?
Listen, be damned. I didn't see that one coming. I'm all right.
Brother Menlo? Brother Menlo!
I'm unhurt, but I'm trapped on this side. It's up to you to get the Countess and the urn out safely. I'll go around and meet you in front of the cathedral.
May Danica carry you safely to your destination.
May Balthazar give you the might to make it through. Go now.
That Danica Balthazar thing is actually kind of cool. It's referencing one of the big stories establishing prophecies about Menlo that he's drawn between these two gods. Our voice acting, though, our character sounds so intense. We sound like a villain. May Danica carry you. Oh, did he say Balthazar? Ridiculous, anyway. So, this is really the mission itself now. We're in the falling cathedral, and we've got to carry this urn out. So, think about Guild Wars 1 from the perspective of it's being designed as though everyone's going to play it with friends and never henchmen or heroes and stuff. And this is actually kind of an interesting mission because someone has to carry the damn thing. So I, as a caster, don't have to worry too much. I lose a bit of energy because I no longer have my main hand equipped and I don't get that stuff, but I can still cast spells. If I was a ranger or if I was an assassin or a warrior, if I was using any kind of weapon specifically, I would have a real annoying job of dropping this thing and picking it back up and dropping it and picking it back up. Especially now that I just have henchmen. I actually have pretty good memories of this back in the day. I remember, again, one of the times I was watching my brother play, and he was playing a ritualist through this campaign, and I believe that there was a held item that when you dropped it, it rezzed everyone or something, and his whole party wiped in this mission, but that he dropped this item, this writ skill, and rezzed everyone at once. So there are two routes through this, and I have mistakenly, to tell you the truth, gone the weird route. So you can escape from the cathedral by going through the heart of the cathedral, which should take you through lots of big open rooms filled with more wardens and stone guardians, like the ones you saw a second ago. Or you can come around here, which is the winding side path. The path I've picked here gives us more enemy variety, so that's kind of fun. And first of all, I guess we've got the dredge. So yes, guys, the dredge are here. This is actually one of the most interesting things about Cantha to me, that I'm really looking forward to see the devs do something with in Guild Wars 2. Because for all this time, they've not done anything that great with the dredge since launch, I think, even though they developed them so much. The idea here is that the enslaved dredge at the hands of the Stone Summit, way up north, actually dug their way here. I'm not joking. Travelled here through the depths of Tyria and came out, and now they've actually made a home in the Echovald Forest. But they're very xenophobic, they don't like interacting with people, so we fight them. That's kind of the story there. You might find one friendly one in a side quest or something, or I'm deceiving myself here. And so there's a bunch hanging around that we can fight. I wonder why ArenaNet went with dredge here, because it does seem a bit, even for a fantasy game, it seems like a bit of a stretch to have a tunnel that long. But I love the idea of going into that tunnel. I always have. I like the idea of it being like a raft sequence, like in the Super Adventure box. You know, you're riding through that tunnel, and that's how we get to Cantha. If the devs nod to that in the expansion, I will be over the moon, because it's always been such an interesting idea that this tunnel exists, and yet we never actually see it. We just see that there are dredge here. These are some interesting enemies as well. There were a few vampire enemies and bat enemies that you don't see very often. There's actually a very rare type of vampire that you only see at the very, very one specific end place in an elite mission at the end of the game, which maybe I'll be able to show you guys, probably not. Hopping Vampire, you should check it out on the wiki. And then what we were fighting as well were some Oni. I'm going to see some more of those in a second, so I'll talk there. What's kind of cool about the dredge here, by the way, is there are assassin dredge. Look at this. There's that dredge gutter. he's an assassin. There were no assassins in Tyria side, so one thing Guild Wars 1 could do that was very interesting is take established enemies and give them the new profession that they'd added. I think if ArenaNet were just a bit slower about adding new professions, a little bit more careful, and they'd gone slightly different route with their campaign format, they really could have kept going with Guild Wars 1. It didn't have to get as unwieldy as it did, as fast as it did, and there are so many exciting ideas and potential in a game of this format, really. So obviously the other big thing about this mission is the falling cathedral itself. The kind of twist is that you're constantly being harassed by this AoE pressure as the roof collapses down on you, just keeps falling on you, keeps falling on you, keeps falling on you. And in addition to that as well, as you travel, what you'll find is a lot of the pillars and posts break down, revealing more stone creatures that will fight you, stone guardians like the Stone Rain and stuff, who was one of the cards we drafted early on, actually. So here's more vampiric creatures, blood drinkers. I actually think the concept art for these creatures is called Tarantula Bat. Seriously, think about it. And the concept art they did for it is really cool. A cross between a tarantula and a bat. Basically a flying tarantula. They did some really good concept art for it. It's super creepy, and those enemies are what ended up in the game. So yeah, these Oni here. So all over Cantha, this is another huge thing that I absolutely have to see in the expansion. If the devs don't do this, they made a huge mistake. So they basically, these are Oni, and you've just seen a huge pack of them spawn. But in general, all over Cantha, even back on Xingji, through the city and wherever else, you have a chance of these sneaky assassin demons to spawn in out of thin air, shadow step to you, and try to hunt you down. And they were always designed to be a much higher level than you, and with pretty deadly, fast, damaging skills. They'll attack you, and they were really badass. I loved their design visually. They were creepy. There was a big mystery about who they were, who they were working for, that kind of gets resolved a bit by one of the elite missions towards the end of the game. But that is a big thing about Cantha. The Oni plaguing it and attacking you. You never found Oni anywhere else. Not in any of the Eye of the North content, not in Nightfall, not in Prophecies. Only here in Cantha. There's no reason, really, why we couldn't still see them in Guild Wars 2. Oni are so cool to me. I probably would put them on a top 10 list of creatures in this entire IP. This whole franchise, if it was like WP top 10 most interesting things, the Oni would be on that list. The Oni are so cool that I could imagine a raid boss during the Guild Wars 2 Cantha era that is purely just fighting an Oni. That would be so amazingly badass to me. They are that cool. And so anyway, we're fighting several of them, and you know, they're melting, but try to ignore that. So yeah, get some more dredge. I'm doing these kind of very narrow corridors, and I don't have any problem carrying the urn as I go. But the other route, I might have had a little bit more of a challenge. They just would have been more open environments, a little bit more opportunity in aggroing different patrols at different times, trying not to, you know, overstep my bounds. I don't actually think I've done this route through the mission many times ever. If ever. I mean, honestly, it took me a long time to realize that there were two paths as I was playing it here with you guys. And now we're at the end. So we're coming in from a bit of a weird angle here. You can see on the minimap there's like that portal. That should be the exit. This is the actual entrance to the cathedral. But it's locked, and Danica's going to tell us that to get through, we need to defend her while she summons her skill and, you know, conjures her blood. Or uses her blood to open it. But yeah, look at these posts here falling away, revealing these stone guardians as we fight another extra pop-up of Oni. This is the kind of thing that you'd see all the time if you took the other route through. Some of them look kind of like griffins. Some of these really big, cool-looking casters with these wings. Again, feels very Paragon-y, honestly. And these were the guys with the cool skills, you know, that suited their name, the Stone Rain, and what they do is they just fire loads and loads and loads of pellets at you. My skill bar was pretty well handled here. The Wardens... Most of what my team comp is right now is very anti-caster. You know, running Mistrust and all the energy denial and stuff. But fighting all the Wardens at the start of the mission, I didn't really get much value. But fighting these, I get loads of value. So I kind of think I took the wrong route through, honestly. We also get this big boss here. This final defender of the cathedral, or within it. What's he called? Stone Justice. Sorry, Stone Justice. Stone Judge, is that? Yeah, Stone Judge. As you can tell, I'm actually leaning quite far away from the screen here. And yeah, so he goes down. Danica runs over to the door, and she opens it. There used to be a little bit of a bug in this mission where if you had minions with you, she'd just get stuck healing the minions forever and wouldn't cast this skill. Which is quite funny. But I have no such problems. And that's it. We get the urn.
the wards failed, the gate collapsed, and for a while there, I wasn't sure my spell would work. I think, my friends, it's time to leave this place.
Agreed. Lead the way.
Right. Follow me.
Listening back, I don't think she sounds that bad. Not really. Hello, Menno.
Glad you could make it.
One down, one to go.
Indeed. Come, Master Toggle will want to hear that we've recovered the urn. Thank you, Countess.
May the gods watch over you in your pursuits.
That's such a cool shot of the cathedral. Really, really like the area there. And so there we have it. That is how we recover the urn. It's interesting to hear us say one down, one to go, because I have always been a big believer, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit here, that once we get these two items, we kind of have what we need to conclude the story. But we'll talk more about that in the next part. So we finish Arborstone and we're placed at the Ultram Ruins. This is another challenge mission. The challenge missions in the two faction areas are pretty good for actually acquiring faction with the peoples of these regions. So if I press H on my hero panel, they introduce this idea of acquiring currency for the Kurziks or acquiring currency for the Luxons. You could spend that. It would give your guilds and your guild's alliance renown with these people, allow you to actually own outposts. That'll be something interesting if Guild Wars 2 actually looks into the idea of owning areas in the regular open world, as that's something that Factions itself actually did. There's exclusive areas in these outposts that you can't visit unless you actually own them or in an alliance that is associated, or in the particular alliance that owns these places. But you've got to build faction to be able to do so, which is why when I click this, you see it's going to take 6 million faction to control the Ultram Ruins. I wonder how that number has fluctuated over the years and the game's population. But so, yeah, we finished that, and adjoining to that is House Zuhelzer itself. There were various side quests and interesting things here. A large chunk of the forest itself opens up around now, I think, or maybe it's a little bit later that you can actually come this deep. You can even get some competitive missions. But for now, we're going to go back up to the Martu Keep, and our job next time is to travel across the Pongmei Valley to meet with Togo at the Boreas seabed, and we're going to see the Jade Sea, which when I very first played Factions was desperately keen to see, as it's such a cool area to go to. So see you guys for that, and the halfway mark of the whole campaign already in the next part. See you there.